Today, we explore another epic chapter from the Book of Judges, uncovering the Bible story of Ehud, an unlikely hero whose courage and cunning delivered Israel from the oppressive rule of the Moabites. This is the Bible story of Ehud. In the turbulent times of ancient Israel, the nation had fallen into deep sin, straying from the path of righteousness. As a consequence, God allowed the Moabites to subjugate the Israelites, subjecting them to harsh labor and relentless oppression. For 18 long years, the Israelites toiled under the heavy hand of King Eglon, their spirits crushed and hope dwindling. Amidst this despair, the Israelites cried out to God for deliverance. In response to their heartfelt prayers, God chose Ehud. Despite his insecurities caused by his left-handed, a man from the tribe of Benjamin, to rise as their deliverer. Ehud was a humble figure, often overlooked due to his left-handedness, a trait historically viewed with suspicion and not seen as a mark of leadership. Ehud accepted his divine calling with a mix of apprehension and resolve, but not without doubts. He understood the challenges that lay ahead, especially considering the societal biases against left-handed individuals. However, God's plan was clear. Ehud's left-handedness would become his strength, turning what others saw as a weakness into a pivotal advantage in the mission to free Israel. Ehud waited, watching and praying for the right moment. One day, Ehud heard of a Moabite delegation heading to see King Eglon. He knew this was the opportunity he'd been waiting for. As the time came, Ehud was tasked to deliver a significant message to King Eglon. Accompanied by a delegation of Israelite envoys, Ehud set out towards the heart of Moabite power. The journey was fraught with tension, each step bringing him closer to a confrontation that would change the fate of his people. Upon arriving at the Moabite palace, the delegation was subjected to thorough security checks. Guards meticulously inspected each traveler, searching for hidden weapons. Ehud's heart raced as he approached the entrance, acutely aware that any slip could spell disaster. His right thigh concealed a finely crafted sword, expertly hidden to evade detection by the vigilant guards focused on the left side. As Ehud was escorted to King Eglon's private chamber, his mind raced with the weight of his mission. The palace was a sprawling complex, exuding an air of invincibility under King Eglon's rule. Ehud was led alone into the king's opulent apartment, the doors closing behind him, sealing his fate. Inside the chamber, King Eglon sat upon his throne, surrounded by luxury and power. Ehud approached the king with a mixture of humility and determination. "King Eglon," he began, "I have a message from God for you." The king, intrigued and unsuspecting, invited Ehud to sit and converse privately. As they spoke, Ehud's resolve solidified. He recalled the meticulous planning he had undertaken, preparing the concealed sword and understanding the guards' routines. The king, confident in his security, remained unaware of the impending threat. In a swift and decisive moment, Ehud drew his hidden sword and struck, delivering a fatal blow to the mighty king. The king of Moab was dead. But now came the real challenge, escaping this fortified palace unnoticed. Outside, the guards waited, standing at attention and expecting Ehud to emerge soon. But as the moments passed and the door remained shut, the guards began to glance at each other. They could no longer ignore the strange silence from the king's chamber. One of them reached for the door, his hand trembling, and pushed it open. As they entered, the sight before them sent a shock through their ranks. King Eglon lay dead, motionless on his throne. The open window, swaying gently, was the only clue to what had happened. Ehud had escaped, slipping away into the hills of Ephraim, leaving the guards with nothing but questions and the cold, unsettling realization that Israel's deliverer had struck and vanished without a trace. Breathless but triumphant, Ehud returned to the Israelite camp. When he arrived back in Israel, he gathered his people. He met their eyes with a firm gaze, his voice strong as he called them to action. A revolution against the oppressor. Recognizing Ehud's bravery and divine favor, the Israelites rallied behind him as their chosen leader. With renewed courage, Ehud raised his voice in a battle cry, declaring, "The Lord has given our enemies into our hands." Emboldened by Ehud's leadership and God's promise, the Israelites mobilized against the Moabites. They seized the fords of the Jordan River, cutting off the Moabites' escape routes and preventing any chance of retreat. The ensuing battle was fierce, but the Israelites fought with unparalleled valor, driven by the desire for freedom and divine support. The Israelites emerged victorious, defeating approximately 10,000 Moabite soldiers. This monumental triumph liberated Israel from decades of oppression, restoring peace and prosperity to the land. The nation celebrated Ehud's heroic deeds, honoring him as Israel's second judge. His leadership ushered in 80 years of peace, a testament to his faith and unwavering commitment to God's will. Now, my friends, let's pause and reflect on 3 lessons from Ehud's Bible story. God responds to genuine repentance. The story of Ehud begins with Israel oppressed because they had turned away from God. When they cried out in repentance, God answered by raising up Ehud to deliver them. For us as believers, this shows that no matter how far we stray, God's mercy is always there. When we turn back to Him with sincere hearts, He listens and responds. Judges chapter 3, verse 15 assures us that God hears the cries of His people, ready to restore and rescue. God uses the unexpected to accomplish His will. Ehud was left-handed, a rare trait in his culture and something others might have seen as a disadvantage. But God used this to Ehud's advantage, allowing him to approach King Eglon unsuspected. In our lives, God often works through what may seem weak, unusual, or even overlooked. Just as Ehud's left-handedness became part of God's plan, our unique qualities and even our struggles can be powerful tools in God's hands. Judges chapter 3, verse 16 reminds us that God's plans are beyond human expectations. Victory requires courageous faith. Ehud's boldness in carrying out God's mission took tremendous faith. Alone with the king, he didn't hesitate, trusting fully in God's purpose and strength. This faith didn't just deliver him, it freed an entire nation. As Christians, we're reminded that true faith often requires courage to follow God's lead, even when the path is risky. Judges chapter 3, verses 20 to 22 show us that when we step forward in faith, God equips us with the strength to overcome any obstacle. However, peace was not everlasting. As Ehud's time came to an end, the Israelites slipped back into the sin and were delivered to the hands of a new oppressor. And this time, it was up to a strong woman to deliver her people. Watch the next video as we delve into the epic Bible story of Deborah,